First of all, welcome. Thank you very much for everybody that makes the time available to join us this afternoon. Uh, I know it takes some time out of your day, but I hope at least it's adding value so that you can have something of value to take away from this session. So I would like to welcome all of you. Thank you for joining us. I would also like to welcome Dr. David de Wet and also Rian Roux, our head of engineering. They are going to assist me when you guys are catching me out with a difficult question that I may not be able to answer. But I trust that the answers will be ready. And for the people that just joined now, welcome.
Hey.
I hope you're going to enjoy it. The agenda this afternoon is quite simple. I would like to discuss the service contention versus the way that we implement data management on Twoobii, the fair use policy. We get so many questions and people that ask, it's got uncertainty of why we're doing it and how we're doing it. So I thought that let me discuss it and put it a little bit into perspective, and hopefully it will put you in a position to also answer your customers' questions on that. I would like to start off with a little bit of history. When we were all using dial-ups, 1995, for those of you that were born then already, some of us were using dial-ups, and when we got a 2400 bits per second link, we were so extremely happy, and eventually it went up to 22 kilobits per second and then 36 kilobits per second. And if you were lucky enough to get a 36K dial-up link, you were really in heaven, internet heaven for those days. Nowadays, when you get down to 36 kilobits per second, you're on the phone and are not very happy with your service provider. What did happen in the past, let's say almost 2 years, maybe 3 years, is people got used to getting fiber-based internet services, which is uncapped, and they expect uncapped, unlimited, unshaped, unthrottled, nothing. It must just run full speed all the time. I joked with one of my colleagues. I said, are you also one of the guys that download star.star from the internet, trying to download the whole internet because he's sitting on a couple of terabytes every month on his usage? So that is the way some people operate, is they really enjoy the freedom of the internet society. And there's also much to see and to do on the internet that one would not like to be bogged down. What did we also see is that people experience at nighttime, internet is fast, early morning is fast, and then it slows down during the day. And especially if you've got a business service, you don't want that. You don't want slow internet during the day and fast internet during the night. It is good for a consumer type service, but not for business services. So the thing that we need to all work together is to start educating users that they should select the correct package for what they need. Now, all of us also know that a user would buy the cheapest package and try to squeeze the most out of it. And I'll show you some examples of that a little bit later during the presentation. So I've seen so many people that say, well, a 4 megabits per second link is fast enough for me. And if I run it 24 hours a day, I should at least get to 700 gigabytes for the month. And then when they try to do that, they find out that it's not working that way. So putting a lot of pressure on your service provider, they may generate an uncapped service for you at 4 megabits per second, or even 10 or 15 or 20 megabits per second. But then they use a method called contention, and a lot of people in the same pool, and it's also not a satisfactory solution. So we decided to go the other route. We want a business service that is fast, that's manageable, that is quantifiable. And this is where I'm going to spend some time this afternoon. Now, you've seen this diagram and the good, cheap, fast slogans in many shops. Darby also worked out one for us where in a retail world, people want good, cheap, and fast. But we all know that if you want good and cheap, the chances are that it will be slow. If you want cheap and fast, the chances are that it will be a low quality service. And good and fast, that's expensive. You're not going to get that cheap. So typically that model is not a feasible model. It's not possible. What we decided with Twoobii is to actually work it a little bit different. If you look at Twoobii, fast and cheap, you're going to get little data. Fast and uncapped is expensive. Cheap and uncapped is slow. But we found a balance with Twoobii where we balance it according to your needs. And that brought us to the sweet spot where you can have a fast, cheap, and an uncapped service that is cost effective and in balance and not expensive. So this is where I would like to spend some time this afternoon and just tell you guys what we're doing and how we're doing it, and maybe cover a couple of things there. I don't know if you've seen this slogan that says data is the new oil. So I attended a webinar last night, IoT, where the presenter said, data is the new oil, but if you don't manage the oil, it spills everywhere and then you've got a disaster in your hands. So if you look at that top bit of information I provided there, it's just last week's Top Talker report. We see that the weekly usage on the top talkers were 2.4 terabyte, and the allowance for the same 8 people were 939 gigabytes. So imagine everybody use their service to that extent without any type of management. It will be soon then the whole network will be degraded and we'll sit with a problem. So just a standard fact, satellite data cost is based in US dollars. It's a huge capital investment for the satellite operators to get a satellite flying and to operate it and maintain it. So satellite, if you don't manage it properly, is quite an expensive commodity. So just, I already spoke about the top talkers. 8 of the top guys used 266% of the allowance. And we cannot afford to leave it unmanaged because it will impact all the users negatively. If we look at the difference between contention-based services and fair use policy-based services, the best analogy I could come up with is this: take a tank of data. If you take an analogy of a water tank and you have 2 pipes out of that water tank, the way that contention-based services work is you've got 1 pipe and many little taps or sprayers connected to that pipe. The more you connect, the less water comes out of each individual sprayer. The more you close taps on those, the more water a specific user or the rest of the users get. So this is a moving target. If you take, for instance, a 1 to 10 or a 1 to 40 contention, you get basically 40 users that compete for the same amount of data that comes out of that pipe, out of the tank. And this is the way that service providers can provide a low-cost service, is to add more users to that pipe. Now, I've made a little sum down below that is not perfect, and it's not 100% correct, but it's an approximation. If you use a 4 megabit downlink with a 1 megabit uplink with a 1 to 10 contention, if you get a situation where all 10 users are using the service concurrently, then theoretically the downlink should allow each user to get 400 kilobits per second. Now we know that's not fully true because the systems implement all sorts of fancy algorithms that actually give you a better throughput. So, but this is just an analogy of approximation that you could get down to 400 kilobits per second. The same with the 1 megabits per second transmit link. If all 10 users transmit simultaneously, it actually goes down to 100 kilobits per second, although you think you've got a full 1 meg service. If you take that same link and you contend it between 30 users, then the picture looks a little bit different. It goes down to 133 kilobits per second on your receive leg and 33 kilobits per second on the transmit leg. Now, this constantly varies because people are not constantly busy uploading or transmitting data or receiving data. So the platform would compensate for that and allow users to get the benefit of the unused capacity on those links. But the general analogy is that you've got a pipe with many taps on that pipe that will allow data out as and when people use it. And the more people use it concurrently, the less data is available for you to use on your side. Just to reiterate, multiple customer sites are placed in a network's pool, and the user experience is based on the average of the use of all sites in the pool. That's why with general broadband services, people specify the transmit and receive data rates as up to, not a specific quantifiable value. That is to protect them against unnecessary actions. The possible gigabytes per user is then therefore also random. You could get a lot of gigabytes if it is Christmas period and the other business users are all on holiday and you've got all the capacity available. But when everybody is back and updating their windows, then all of a sudden the gigabytes that you potentially can get through that same link is a lot less. It also has an impact on your QoS settings for voice, video, or business critical applications. Now, if I introduce the Twoobii fair use policy model, you'll see if we take the same data tank full of data, then we've got each user gets direct access to that pipe. So they can get the full capacity of the specifications for that pipe, whether it's a 1 meg, 4 meg, or a 10 meg, 2 meg, or a 20 meg, 3 meg link. That is the capacity that's available to them. Now here is where you need to protect the oil from not spilling all out on the bigger links. And you'll see there's a little gauge on each one of those links, on those pipes. And that is where we apply fair use policy to manage and protect the platform so that everybody gets access to their contracted data. Now, one way that we're doing it different than many other users or other platforms is that we manage it on a daily basis. The reason for that is that we need to ensure that people get data, equal amount of data throughout the month. You'll find that some of the platforms implement it on a monthly basis, so people can use all of their data within a week or 2 weeks. Or if I show you some of the graphs a little bit later on, they could actually use that in a very short space of time. And because we proclaim that Twoobii is an uncapped service, the users must always have access to their data. They must not be cut off due to usage. So therefore we implement the fair use policy, and the user know that they've got fast data until they get to their first allowance, exceeding their allowance. And from there onwards, we manage the link dynamically downwards to protect the network. And midnight, we reset the link again to full speed. And then from midnight until 6 o'clock in the morning, when the platform is quiet, we allow users to use as much data as they want to without managing or measuring the data that they're using. From 6 o'clock onwards, we then start measuring again and manage it on a daily basis. This gives us the means to get exact quantified data rate definitions for the user. So if a user buys a 20 meg, 3 meg service, then at least I don't want to put my head on a block and say 100% of the time they will have 20 meg receive and 3 meg transmit, because there are a couple of other factors as well that could influence the link. But I usually put my name towards it and say 95% of the time they should at least get what they contracted for with their bandwidth. So they know they've got that bandwidth speed and they know how much data they've got available. And here is the catch, where people would want to buy the least amount of data and want the most out of it. So therefore, it's our job as resellers and channel partners to manage that expectation with the user and ask them, when we do the sale, what do you want to use the service for? You guys must tell me if I'm going too fast or too slow.
All good, thank you, Hendrik.
Great, thanks.
All good, thank you.
Excellent. So with the Twoobii service, you get the full quality of service features and QoS features that can be implemented to make sure that the quality of voice is excellent. The video is excellent, and business critical services can be prioritized to make sure that the users get the correct experience. Therefore, we're not pushing the service as a consumer service, but it's a business service. Our packages are all also called Business 10-100, Business 15-200, to enforce that expectation that this is a business type service. The users can measure themselves as well how much data they used, and the discussion is never on that they use more or less data if the service starts getting slow during the day. We also, I'll show you shortly, we've also implemented tools that allow you to support them and show them how much data they use during the day. I already mentioned the free period between midnight and 6 o'clock in the morning. And some of the users that have to do big downloads and upgrades of the operating system, they use this facility and they schedule their upgrades and do it during that time. This last point is, on the sales side, actually quite important. A fair use policy-based service brings similar performance benefits than a cap solution, but at contention-based pricing. That is where we get to that sweet spot in the middle of those three circles that I showed you earlier. Then I would just like to encourage you to use the Twoobii usage portal. You can also provide the users with their own logins. If you send an email to the service team, they will provide you with the logins. And this is one of the tools that I use quite regularly when customers phone me. Now, you do get a situation that they're supposed to phone the service desk, but they phone the person that they know and that they dealt with. They usually want to hit the sales guy and say, you sold me this, and now it's not working like that. So I'm sure all of you already been confronted with that. So I'm just going to give you a short demo on the usage portal. If you want to bear with me. I've got here a 4 meg, 1 meg, 30 gigabyte service that the user phoned me and said, the link is very slow. What's happening? And I had a look at the graphs. And I said, okay, I suppose that you haven't been online for a number of months with your laptop. Because if you look here, you'll see the total usage is 3.3 gigabytes for the day. They only contracted for a 30 gig service, which means that they've got 1 gigabyte for the day. So they already used 3 gigs for the day. So the moment that happens, the fair use policy kicks in and we start managing the data usage. Now, as the days went on and the laptop got updated and the phones got updated, they started coming down to more manageable. They're still exceeding it. So I'm pretty sure that I'll be able to do an upsell at the end of the month because every day they're exceeding it. Now, this is an important point. Many times people will tell you the link is slow, but the link cannot be that slow if they manage to use 3.1 gigs on the download side, 3 gigabytes for the day. And by the way, this site is totally off grid, no cell phone coverage. They run on a generator. So this is only active when a generator runs, and they usually start it at 7 in the morning until 5 or 6 at night. So this is the time that they have to do all their business communications, and at least this gives them a means to also do WhatsApp calls and communicate with the rest of the world. So when I spoke to the user today, I said to her, your link better? She said, yes, it's better, but you need to give me a report at the end of the month so that I can convince the boss to upgrade. And even today, when they're not doing any upgrades, they sit already on 1.2 gigabytes for the day. Now, I would just like this, if we look at an hourly graph, you can see here, the link was running fairly fast, and then the fair use policy kicked in. I assume the fair use policy actually kicked in a little bit earlier. The first level kicked in, and we start managing it down. So by now, it is not going to be as fast as it was this morning, but there's a good reason for that. They already way beyond the daily allowance. This platform also gives you the facility to get the data on a daily basis to see exactly whether they were running errors, how much download they did for the day, and how much upload they did for the day. This is more or less when the service started. And now on a busy day, they did 3 gig for the day download. That was yesterday, the day before. Day before, yeah, and they did 142 megabyte upload. So you can tell them exactly how much they did, what they did, to be able to pinpoint what happened on those links. Just want to log out quickly and do a new one. Now, these are working links. It's not demo services. So this is how it looks when you log in. I then go to statistics, internet, and this link was also a 4 meg, 1 meg for the guest house, 30 gigabyte. And the customer was complaining, it is slow, it is slow. Now you can see the usage for the day was 7.5 gigabytes. Then on the weekend, they were going up. Before the weekend, 17 gigs, 17 gigs, 17 gigs on a 4 meg link, which is excellent. And on the weekend, I upgraded the link for them for a test period to 8 meg 60 gigabyte. And by 8:45, the user phoned me on Saturday morning and said to me the link is slow again, internet
Just
sales
warm,
working.
man.
And I had a
Warm,
look at the link and I could see it was sitting on 27 gigabyte for the day
Warm that
already,
thing.
9 o'clock in the morning. So this is the reason why we have to implement the fair use policy and manage the usage of the links. We've got a document that describes the way to operate the service, and you are welcome, if you don't have a copy of it any longer, to contact me and ask me, and I can show that to you or send it back to you. You can see whenever they get 4 meg, they flatline it until the fair use policy kicks in, and then it's low. And then on a new link, when they went up to the 8 megabits per second link, they flatlined it until the fair use policy kicked in. They flatlined it again, and then it became slow until the next day. With these graphs, the user cannot then argue any longer and say it's a slow link, because it is actually working. Just want to go back to the presentation again. This is just the login and kind of statistics that you can get out of the portal. And I've done this for the purpose of the presentation that we'll share afterwards. In conclusion, the user ability lies with you, our reseller or channel partner. I definitely encourage you to start using the usage portal to assist you in managing the users. Now, you'll find that when people complain that they run out of data, especially new users, this is a time to educate them. Typically, it's Windows updates that cause that, cell phone updates. And what I also find is that they share the Wi-Fi access code, or somebody in the organization or household shares the Wi-Fi access code, and then they've got many rogue users sitting outside the perimeter and getting free internet. One of the ways that we suggest that especially guest houses and lodges mitigate the overusage of their data is to implement the hotspot service. We do have a hotspot service that we have at a monthly cost, a cloud-based service that you can get from us at a low monthly cost that can assist the users to manage the local on-site Wi-Fi. Then another thing that I just want to throw in, it's not directly related to today's presentation, but when you do get a user with a number of sites, and some of the sites run constantly out of data during the day and they go into the fair use policy management, that you should consider getting them a data bundle service. It's typically, like I mentioned previously, similar to a cell phone APN service. And that way they can share the ups and downs between or amongst the different sites. Some sites that use more, some sites that use less, and they can equalize it and all the sites can get data. So keep this in mind, and you're welcome to speak to us, and we can help you with a quotation or a service definition for that one as well. That's it from my side. Now it's over to you guys. If you've got any questions, you're welcome to ask questions and we'll try our best to answer them.
Thank you, Hendrik. Just in the meantime, everybody, so we're still planning on the next session in 2 weeks' time to talk about case studies that underline the 3 myths of satellite. The satellite is expensive, as high latency and is slow. So we will be building some case studies and some cost metrics to discuss why we believe that's not the case, and in what applications satellite is very strong value propositions for the market. If there's anything else, by the way, you're welcome to share topics with us and respond to Hendrik's weekly emails. If there's anything you'd like us to specifically provide support in the training sessions.
Darby, it's Tim. Just wanted to ask you, is there any progress on the content management?
Tim, that's in, it's operational. At the moment, we're busy reviewing options to the market. So, very good point. Thank you very much. If you have inputs from the market and applications where you believe we need to start managing content, please talk to us. It's a careful line for us. So we at the moment are considering doing the content management when we have specific solutions, like, for example, for schools or universities, or a large owner saying, look, blocks updates for me, or do this or do that. So while we're not going to actually do content management on a per customer request, initially we want to let the market lead us a bit. So we want to see what the market does. So very ready to start discussing. Thanks for raising it.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you, Hendrik.